Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marked by Wrestling. And for a special occasion, we are not specifically going to talk wrestling tonight. It's another special occasion where we bring in a dear friend of the family, a dear brother, to chat up some movies. You already see it in the episode description. We're going to talk about Rocky. We're going to talk about Creed. And we can't do that without the one and only hit maker, record breaker, lifts weights, eats steaks sweeter than a German chocolate cake. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, it's B Convos in the house.
Sweeter than a chocolate cake. That's great.
I just stole that from superstar Billy Graham.
Oh man, and I hate chocolate. So
sorry,
that's great.
Sorry about that, but nevertheless,
Love
we
it.
are where we
Love
are.
It.
Yes,
What's up, everybody?
There's going to be a whole.
I've got Stella.
All right, Stella Rose coming in tonight, coming in hot. So yeah, tonight, Rocky franchise and Creed franchise. Some basic boxing underdog stories. We were just chatting about a few weeks ago, going back and forth on some of those, and what a wild franchise it is. It's I wouldn't say it's split personalities, but it really evolved over time from being one thing to another. And as we're getting into that, just say hi real quick to the people in the chat. Tyrell, good to see you. And if we feel like we have the time, maybe we'll address a couple of wrestling things here or there. There is some wrestling crossover for sure. This is the first Hollywood, no pun intended, appearance we see of the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan.
That's right.
A pre-Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, who appears in Rocky III as Thunder Lips, the Ultimate Male.
In the flesh, baby.
Yeah, the Ultimate Male versus the Ultimate Meatball. Tyrell Breed in the house. Hi, good to see you, Tyrell. National French Dip and National Chicken Soup for the Soul Day today, says Zach. Which is great because I actually had chicken noodle soup for lunch. So I love it when I'm in synergy with whatever today is when I don't even know. Dro, good to see you again. I'm sure UFC is going to be exciting this weekend. Rickardy, George, good to see you both. And so we are here. So I'm thinking we just kind of take a walk chronologically through the movies. Nico, good to see you, my friend. Glad you're here as well. And just take a walk and maybe just give some thoughts because like these movies are all so different. And I don't know how deep in the history, friends in the chat, you are on the Rocky franchises. I know a lot of times I would say my perception, at least AJ, I don't know about you, is that when you bring up Rocky, people tend to think of like 3 or 4 for the most part. But the first Rocky film was a Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards. And directed by one of the low-key, most underrated directors of, I wouldn't say ever, because he doesn't have a particularly long resume, but John G. Avildsen, also directed the first 3 Karate Kid movies as well. So clearly, much like a Hulk Hogan or a Roman Reigns or a John Cena, the man found a formula and worked with it and made some money. There's a lot of overlap kind of in the stories of those movies a little bit, but I love them all. So, first Rocky movie right out of the gate. What are your thoughts on the first? We can even pair them off because honestly, there's a lot of tonal similarity between 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 and Rocky Balboa. Like, I mean, there's sort of his ascension. There's him at his competitive peak in 3 and 4, so to speak, and then there's his sort of post in-ring career in 5 and Balboa, so to speak. In the twilight of his career, if you will. So this ascension of Rocky in the first 2 movies, particularly the first one, what's your take on that movie?
My take on the first one, it reminded me of this is going to sound like an odd correlation, but it reminded me of the first Ghostbusters. And
Okay.
by that, I mean, it was not setting itself out to be anything other than just a film. It just had a story that it wanted to be told, and it wasn't trying to pander. It wasn't about gimmicks. It wasn't about um, merchandise. It wasn't about any of that. It was just hard nosed. Let me just put my and keep in mind, this is what are we talking? 1976. I want to say
76. Yeah, we talked about this. Three banger pop culture touchstone films happened 3 years in a row. Because we got Jaws in 1975, we got Rocky in 1976, and the very first Star Wars in 1977. Like all year after year, and that was back in a time too where in movie theaters you didn't have to get out there in the first 30 days or else you weren't going to see it. Like
right.
movies would sit in theaters for 6 months to more.
It was a
Yeah.
it was a different time. It
Oh
was it
yeah.
was a different time, and this was a time where I think today's generation, they don't quite understand. You literally, when they say put pen to paper, you had to put paper in a typewriter, and God help you if you made a mistake and you didn't have correction ribbon. If that typewriter even allowed for correction ribbon, it was whiteout, it was pencil. It was a different time. And so to bang something out about a bum Italian southpaw who was just trying to come up in a time, again, in the 70s,
Working
was
for a
you
loan
came out of
shark.
working for a loan shark. So it's not like he had a good heart, but he basically had to do what he had to do to survive, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And you're coming in a time when you have the civil rights movement coming out of the 60s, going into the 70s. It was a very interesting time of race relations in this country. So to have this character fighting against a black character who is the man and trying to beat that man, you've got a white man trying to beat a black man. There were just this film was multi-layered. It was like a thick lasagna. Okay.
Mm.
It wasn't trying to be anything other than a really thick, solid lasagna. Not a, you watch these cooking shows that I know you love, do the cooking analogies, and you always see these cooking shows. It's a play on this. It's a deconstructed that. It wasn't any of that.
Nope. Slap
You
it
know what
on
I
the plate.
mean? It wasn't. This was grandma's kitchen, flat out, plain and simple, thick lasagna. That's what this film was trying to be. And that's one of the reasons why I love Ghostbusters, because when you watch Ghostbusters, which I saw in the theater, you realize that this was just a movie that was written with heart, that you had a story to tell, and you wanted it to be as solid as it possibly could be. And the fact that it won Best Picture, that spoke volumes. If you tell somebody today who is not aware of that Rocky is a Oscar winner, they wouldn't believe you.
No.
They wouldn't believe you.
No.
And
Not
it
at all.
happened. It
Yeah.
happened.
I
It
mean,
happened.
obviously, even though, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to pat this up on the back, but just speaking truth right now, even though the pounds are coming off a little bit, I still do love a good food analogy. So I'm glad you took this conversation to the kitchen, AJ,
Yes.
because this first film is some brisket if there ever was brisket. Like, because this film cooked and cooked and cooked until it got to the truly like earned satisfying conclusion. It is a, I know it's about boxing, but to put it in our common vernacular that we understand in this chat, in this community, it was a slow working wrestling match too. That does pick up at the end and has a hot sequence to finish. But it reminds me, and I'd heard someone else say this, and I wish I could remember where I read it, but you're talking about the time of the 70s and 70s film, a lot more a more cynical time in film too. There was a lot more darker films, a lot more jaded. These are the times of like The Godfather, Chinatown, and I'm trying to think Apocalypse Now. You're coming out of Vietnam, and all this stuff, and a lot of the movies and stuff have a real pessimistic view of things.
Yeah.
So all of us who are in the chat are either the children or maybe even grandchildren, not you and me, but some of the others, maybe, of 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 the comeback kid underdog victory story. Like the 80s were chocked full of those stories. But there had to be someone who came first, or there had to be at least the early pioneers of someone who was going to be different and say, you know what, I'm going to bring hope into my storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And no, Rocky's not the first hopeful story to be told, but it is among the ushering in of that phase. And so and during a time where it's surrounded by, it kind of reminds me of just in its tone and the like disproportion of hardship to victory is The Pursuit of Happiness, the Will Smith film. Like that movie is like 99% struggle and 1% victory,
Mm-hmm.
but the victory, but it's all about where the victory hits. It's like booking a good match. You can have a great high spot, but you don't want to do high spots the entire time or it loses its value. But if you work and work and work, or even look at like Jurassic Park, the first one, everybody, you don't see that T-Rex right out of the gate.
No.
They build to it. You see the water shaking. You see, all these other things happening. And then when you get full view, you're like, oh snap. And that is the stuff that sticks with you 30 years later. And so I think this movie did such a good job of really establishing who Rocky was as a character, who he wanted to be. And I did find it kind of interesting that they made. I'm glad you brought up sort of the race thing too, because I you can correct me if I'm wrong. You might see it a little differently, but I felt like there was Apollo, and then there was Apollo's crew, and
Mm-hmm.
like Apollo's crew. First of all, I wasn't alive during the '70s. I'm a kid of the '80s, but it took my attention to see that Apollo's entire organization was black. So I thought that was actually a cool representation that all these businessmen and his corner man, not just the guy holding the bags, but like his manager and everybody, and they weren't like Don King caricatures like we got in Rocky Five, but they were smart, sensible managers. Were like, hey, Apollo, you might not want to overlook this guy. He's a bad matchup. And actually, I actually kind of like that in the first 2 or 3 films. There was still a little bit of analysis from the managerial standpoint of everybody being like, that guy's not a good matchup for you as a fighter. He fights different than you're used to. He's going to catch you, stuff like that. And I'm like, good for them actually thinking sports wise and not just leaning totally on the drama. But Apollo was almost not all the way, almost a cartoonishly Muhammad Ali of like the king of trash talk, all swagger, but like in a charming, in a charismatic sort of way. Like Carl Weathers just pops off the screen, man. He's so good in that role. He's so good in that role. And his story arc too for the first 4 movies was really fantastic as well. Like that idea that is so true of a lot of pro athletes of like, this is your life. Like this is all you know. And at some point, age and life just takes that away from you. And then you really have to struggle to figure out what your identity is. And that first movie really is about identity. It's like Apollo wanting to enhance his image, but Rocky also wanting to shed the image that's been put upon him. Because
Yes.
like his bosses thinks he's supposed to be one way as a loan shark and to hurt people who don't pay up, but he actually wants to be merciful. in those ways. And then he wants to be a fighter, but all of his gym buddies think he's a bum and, a tomato can, and all these things. And at the end of the movie, I love this so much, and it is slightly revisited, but in a different way, a beautifully different way in the first Creed movie. His goal isn't to win the fight.
Mm.
His goal is just to prove that he belongs in the ring. And he's like, I'm not trying to take a title. My eyes aren't distracted by the glitter of the gold. He's like,
Right.
I just want to prove to everybody in there that I belong in here. And the way they proved that in every aspect of that fight was awesome. From everybody's way, from the way Mickey treated him, even from the way I laughed seeing it this time at the end when he and Apollo at the last bell hug each other, and they're both like, no rematch, no rematch. Like neither one of them said. They both said, man, I don't want your smoke, you don't want mine. But let's get out of here while we still can. And then Apollo starts cutting promos again because that's who he is. But man, it's funny because Rocky is such an enduring franchise that it gets boiled down to the sound bites. And if we can talk about wrestling again for a second, I saw Mick Foley, he was on Chris Van Vliet recently. And of course, they bring up the Hell in the Cell match. And JR has got the call of all calls in that match when he sees Foley thrown off the top of the cage, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy's my witness, they're broken in half. But I remember seeing that not long after it actually happened, before it became a meme, and that call meant something because at that time, none of us had ever seen a bump taken like that. And it was scary and shocking and took the wind out of all of us and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when he starts screaming at the end of the movie for Adrian, I'm choked up because she's all he's got. And he is so overcome and overwhelmed that he has proven to everybody, in his own mind and in his own heart. They said the scene right before the fight is them laying in bed the night before, and he's not even looking at her. He's just staring off into the distance saying, I just know that if I can go the distance with him, I'll prove that I'm not a bum.
Yep.
And that's all he did. And he did more than that, but that's what he did. And so when that bell rang, he was just overcome, and screaming for her. So it wasn't, it wasn't a bumper sticker. It wasn't, just a movie quote. That was so real in that moment in that movie, whatever. But
I'll
so
tell you.
go
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that doesn't surprise me at all that film was capable of winning Best Picture because it hit all the notes.
Well, here's an interesting stat. I remember Stallone talking about writing the script for Rocky. He wrote the script in about 3 days.
Wow.
Okay, which is kind of unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they optioned this to make this into a film with a script that was done in 3 days is unheard of. But I looked at this stat. This is what's really interesting because I wanted to know what the budget was for this film, because the thing that I like about certain films, especially certain films back in the day, is you had, especially with Star Wars, for example, you had a limited budget. This wasn't okay, we're going to go make Star Wars. We got Disney backing. It wasn't like that. You had a limited budget. You had to do what you had to do. And this is what I kind of like. This is what I really enjoyed about film school is it's a student film. You've got students in this film that are writing it, directing it, acting in it. You really don't have a budget, and you've got to be creative, and you got to make some way out of no way. And to do that, that means you've really got to put this together, and you can't just lean and rely on trickery, So he wrote this film in 3 days. The budget for the original Rocky film was just under $1 million. Okay. Which is nothing. Because you look at Rocky, there was nothing about that said, this is, top tier stuff. It was just, it was kind of dark and gritty. And I loved it. Just under $1 million. This film became the highest grossing film of 1976, earning approximately $225 million worldwide.
225 in 76.
In 76. And to put that in perspective,
Yeah.
because we all know how expensive it is to go to the movies, the average ticket prices in the United States in 1976 ranged from $2 to $4 a ticket. Okay.
And $4 a ticket had to be like LA prices or New York prices. Because tickets were $3 to $5 10 to 15 years later when I was going. So
now think about that. Think about that. That's why I always say that even with music, it was a different time. It was a different era. Michael Jackson in 1984 had the highest selling album in the world. There were no streaming. There were no downloads. These were people actually getting physical cassette tapes, going out and buying this. The work, the grind was different. You go to a movie today, you've got assigned seats, which is fantastic. Back in the day, it was a fight. Okay. Yeah. You had to show up early to get good seats. God help you. If you've got to hold multiple seats for friends and family,
you better have a lot of jackets.
It was a different time. You got to have a lot of jackets. It was a different time. So that said a lot about that film.
Adjusted for inflation, just so everybody know how like pervasive Rocky was in the culture at that time. 225 worldwide, you're looking at over $1 billion at the box office today. So that's Marvel money, that's Avatar money. That's what's happening with the first Rocky. Also, not to undersell it, this is also pretty unheard of, because most of the time, your Best Picture award winner is not a huge box office success. Yep. You know, very rarely do you have both of those things in your hands, a box office victory and an Academy Award victory. It's very rare. It has happened. Obviously, I just mentioned Avatar, Titanic, you know, other ones like that were able to do that, but it's far more the exception than it is the rule. And so not only are we talking about adjusting for inflation, close to $1 billion, AJ, 10 Oscar nominations.
Come on.
10 Oscar nominations. It only so you know, we say like, oh, it won Best Picture, cool, but I want you to point out that it was running the table. So it only won 2, right? It won Best Picture, Best Director, but it was nominated for Best Editing. Stallone got nominated for Best Actor. Talia Shire, Adrian nominated for Best Actress. Both Mickey and Paulie, Burgess Meredith and Burt Young, were both nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Stallone got nominated for the screenplay for writing, which honestly not all that surprising. Best Sound, and also I'm a little tiffed. I'm a little chuffed, just a little put off that it didn't win this last one. Best Original Song for Gonna Fly Now. Because let me tell you, man, you can listen to, and I'm not putting anything down to lift anything up. You can put all the Metallica, all the you know, all the DMX, the Outcast, whatever you want on your gym workout list, but throw Bill Conti on there, baby. You're gonna be getting gains like nothing. I mean, there's something that is funny. I listened to this. You know who Patrice O'Neal is? The former stand-up comedian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had a bit one time where he was doing an interview at a radio station, and he was making fun of how Creep by Radiohead does something to white boys' souls, which is, he's not wrong. There's something about that. But put Gonna Fly Now on for any man working out, like he's gonna PR that. Like it's just something about the trumpets, man, and the crescendo of all that, and it was just, and it's timeless. It's absolutely timeless. And so yeah, so good, so good. So yeah, I mean, listen, there's not enough good things to say for Rocky, the original Rocky. I encourage you all, sit down, get yourself a good plate, be patient, because it's not a fast-paced movie, but it's so worth it. The payoff is so good in that movie because by the time the fight comes around at the end, you are desperate for Rocky to have something good in his life, to prove himself and everything. And it's just great. Which brings me to Rocky 2. The more I think about it, this wouldn't have worked, especially with the pacing of Rocky 1. But Rocky 2 was such a clean continuation of Rocky 1. You could have Kill Billed the first two Rocky movies. Yes. You could have thrown an intermission there in the middle and had like a Gone with the Wind 4-hour movie.
Yes.
And told that entire story. It was such a clean continuation of the first film. I took it, I watched them on different days, obviously, to prepare for this conversation, because it had been a while since I'd seen either one of them. And it was so clearly a sequel, though. Like so much so that I felt like it really was just a continuation of the first movie. Like the first movie never ended. Like it literally starts with the ambulance ride away from the match going to the hospital, and goes all the way to the rematch. So yeah. So like it doesn't skip a beat. So in that way, it's actually good to watch them together if you've got the time. But also, it's like so many of the same beats. It's a little bit for me of, what do you call it? Oh shoot, what is the phrase? It's a oh man, I can't remember. It's basically when things get a little bit less each time you go back to the well. But I can't think of the phrase now. I'm gonna scream it out in a minute when it hits me.
You will.
But yeah. diminishing returns. That's what it is.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah. So it's a little, just a little bit of diminishing returns, but it does give you, and it does establish too, the heart of Rocky as a character is that Adrian's his anchor. Like, and it's like her love gives him permission to go Kurt Angle and drop the straps and start throwing suplex, and that's a simple thing, but so good. So good. I don't have and I actually appreciate too that they revisit, in Rocky 2, that he doesn't actually want it. Like, he really does want to be like, I proved it. I don't need to keep doing it. Like, I achieved the thing I wanted, but he's discovered that he can't really, it's the only way he can really provide for his family. It's like the only thing he's good at. Like, they go into like his illiteracy a little bit. And then also like his, and then the desperation, that Adrian's in poor health while being pregnant and stuff and everything. And so he really is literally fighting for his family to do that, because that's the only thing he thinks he can do in that situation. And then on the other side, you do have Apollo, who like just cannot let go of the fact that somebody was able to be his equal in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's a real competitive thing too. Like the obsession, the competitive obsession with trying to be the best can really be your undoing. And I love the healthy competitive rivalry that Rocky and Apollo had, like versus almost every other opponent he had. But Rocky 2, what do you think, AJ, before I keep rambling here?
I absolutely agree with the fact that the filmmaking aspect of it, like you said, it just felt like a continuation. Again, I go back to Rogue One. If you remember the end of Rogue One is literally the beginning of Star Wars: A New Hope. And you could have just watched one right after the other and it would have been seamless. And that was beautiful. That's what I want to see. That is just solid filmmaking, solid writing at its best. And that film needed to be done. Sequels at the time were hit and miss. Let's just be honest. Everybody had always said for years and years and years, the sequel is never good as the original. Sometimes that's true, sometimes not so much. But in this case, I thought it was just magnifique. And the fact is, like you said, you had a character in Apollo who basically was in shock that this southpaw bum
Mm-hmm.
took him to the limit like that. It's not something that should have happened. And I liked it because it was a continuing theme in Rocky, in that you have somebody at the top of their game and they have somebody else who's coming up. There's even like in wrestling, you always have somebody else who's coming up, who's nipping at your heels, who is hungry and is going to be a little bit faster, a little bit smarter, uh, a little bit stronger. And so this is a situation where you have an Apollo uh, uh, character that thinks he is the shiznit, if you will, and can't nobody beat him. And technically, Rocky did not beat him in the first film, but
Mm-hmm.
it was enough to scare him. And I like the fact that he's like, you know what? This is personal. This isn't about business. This is something I need to prove to myself, and we need to go one more time. And Rocky, he had a different sense in this, you know. And think about this. It started off, and they're in the hospital. And again, people don't understand who don't watch boxing. Boxing went 15 rounds.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Okay, 15 rounds of brutality. You have somebody who in Rocky you can't see. Cut me, Mick. Cut me. You don't understand.
Yeah.
The kind of metal you gotta have to tell your trainer to cut your eyelid to drain the blood so that you can see.
Yeah.
And the fact that Apollo went over there and Rocky, they're having a conversation in their room. It set the stage so beautifully for what was to be a much needed sequel that ended in the way it needed to end.
Yeah. There's a great ending there too, for that one. It was the one that I'm sure like audiences probably wanted to see, especially after the way the first one ended and stuff. It is funny, like that Apollo did kind of go into like Chael Sonnen mode a little bit, you know, after the fight, where like in the ring, they're like, okay, no, we don't need this anymore. But then once all the cameras are around in the emergency room, he's like, I want the rematch. And Brocky, God bless him, so naive and sincere. He's like, oh, when we were in the ring, you said you didn't want a rematch. I thought we were done. He's like,
this is over.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta go to surgery, man. But yeah, absolutely wild. I mean, the finish to the match is great. And again, like Adrian is the linchpin for Rocky. And so he's just like, you know, what do you want me to do? And she's like, I want you to win. And like that unlocks it. And like, by the way, you know, we've been spoiled by really well written comedies over the years, you know, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of subtlety in the comedies of these first couple of movies, at least. Pauly very dry, you know, kind of humor and a very like rough around the edges, you know, kind of character that he is. And even Mickey too, but like, you know, when Adrian's like, just win, and then Mickey's like, well, what are we waiting for? Like Mickey's like, that's all I needed was your permission, ma'am. I'm gonna grab this man, we're gonna go fight. And then they just go for it, man. And a very cathartic end to Rocky 2 with a new champion of the world.
And I'll say this much real quick before we move on. The other thing I forgot to mention about the original Rocky is it was also a film about awakenings. You mentioned Adrian, and that had me think back to what I wanted to say, is that this was also an awakenings of people, like from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Rocky was how he was. He was working for a loan shark. You want to break some thumbs, whatever the case may be. Adrian, she was about as shy can be. Glasses, beanie, big coat. At the mercy essentially of her brother, who was just big, overbearing kind of a guy. And it was tough for Rocky to bring out what he saw in her, and vice versa. They worked so well together, and it was an awakening for Apollo in this film at the end, where you're really one way, and Apollo was just all gas, no brakes with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
Until he met his Obafemi of sorts, and it was like, okay, wait a minute now. I just hit a brick wall that I didn't expect, and yeah, this doesn't work for me. So that's why I loved the beginning of the film. That might be my best moment of Rocky 2, to be honest with you, is that very beginning. It started off like you said, like the last film ended, and it was no cameras, no anything. Let's just have a heart to heart, man to man. Let's have a quick conversation. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So here comes a dividing point. So we get from Rocky. So we're going into a new decade, right? We go from the 70s into the 80s. We're now in 1982, and we're at Rocky 3. Rocky 3 and 4, and I mean this in the most complimentary way possible, are like they're like a
Easy.
couple of
Careful
they're like a couple of cartoons. Like it if you want any if you guys want any visual evidence of the difference in film between the 70s and 80s, just look at Rocky 1 and 2 and Rocky 3 and 4. Like Rocky 3 and 4, it's just more. It's excess, it's more colorful, it's flashier, the jokes are jokier, the fights are fightier. I think that's the thing too, is that in those first two movies, it really there's really pretty much 2.5, maybe 3 fights along those two movies. There's the 2 Apollo fights, and then the opening fight at the beginning of the first movie, which takes place in a dirty gym. You know, Spider Rico. He's a can. He's nobody. And you know, then we start to get all of the hallmarks of things that people talk about and or think of in the Rocky films, the montages, the soundtrack, the training sequences, and like I said, very colorful, all this stuff. But underneath it all, there really is a good, powerful, because my son watched Rocky 3 with me. Like he just happened to walk in and he sat down and he didn't get up. And then like that's always a good indicator, for a dad, for your kids when you've got them for a good movie, when they sit down to just watch because there's nothing to do, and then they don't get up till the movie's over, which is just pretty dope. But Rocky 3 is a great story. It is the thesis statement of Rocky 3 is that signature song, Eye of the Tiger. And it is the champion who goes soft, who grows accustomed to being on top, losing his competitive edge and losing his hunger. And I got to say, as starting off, this starts off the Rocky trademarks of just montages of fights of him just going through guys, but it's all set to Eye of the Tiger with Mr. T running down the streets in his baby blue Nike top and just shadow boxing in the face of the camera and just looking nasty. I don't know if we can truly communicate to people how menacing Mr. T really was at that time, because now we just see a guy who gives Hall of Fame speeches and talks about his mama for 45 minutes. But he was not the one to mess with. Like he had a true, especially in 82, before, again, this is pre-Hulkamania, so this is 3 years before the first WrestleMania. So he hasn't fully gotten embraced yet as this beloved pop culture figure. That's coming. It's coming really fast, and this is a big part of it. But man, the intimidation factor is really kicks into high gear here with Rocky 3. And I'll come back around and clean up with some extra commentary. But hey, why don't you jump in on Rocky 3, man?
Well, okay. So let me say this much. Rocky 3 came out in 82, right? So when you come out now, again, you film it a year prior, give or take, and then it comes out. So it came out in 82. Looking at IMDb, the A-Team came out in 83. So, and we all know the success of the A-Team. You had B.A. Baracus, the whole thing.
Eye of the Tiger also nominated for an Oscar, by the way. Just so you know.
And well, it goes to show you again, 1976, 1982, these films coming out 40 years ago still stands the test of time in 2025. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. So the thing about Rocky 3 for me is it was a movie that was needed. You had Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. Rocky was what it was. Rocky 2 was okay, let's run this back, and Rocky gets the title. Totally makes sense. Rocky 3 was one of those, okay, now you're the champion. How are you as a champion? How are you? How has this affected you? How has this changed you? And we've seen that in athletes and celebrities, where you start off from humble beginnings and then you get a little piece of the pie, and it kind of goes to your head a little bit. So we've seen this, and it's not unheard of. So I wasn't mad at the fact that you had a rich Rocky now who was fighting guys. They were setups, but
I mean, hey, the shoe dropped in that scene too. Like the fact that Mickey was kind of protecting him.
Which, as a good choice, I get why he did it. I like Rocky. I wouldn't necessarily have agreed with it, but I understand the concept behind the why. But this film was needed to see how this can go to your head. And again, the first film, like I said, was like an awakening. Rocky's now he's gone from a popper to, it's like Biggie Smalls with that song, wonder why Christmas missed us, and now, champagne when we thirsty. You know what I mean? Like it's basically that, right?
Right.
And so you have that situation, but now, like I said, you've got this up and comer nipping at the heels, who's grinding. I live alone. I train alone. I'm gonna win the title alone. It was needed. And aside from that, the added element to have the guy that you beat come to you and want to train you, that's wild. That was the hook for me. The film needed to be done because Rocky needed to be put to the test. Clubber Lang was that test. He absolutely was a monster in that film. Mr. T had a bad attitude, and that's the way that he portrayed himself on camera, in interviews. It didn't matter. So it worked. And then you have this bigger than life, like you had said in the beginning, Thunder Lips in the flesh, baby.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. Dude, people don't remember, he started off as a heel.
Oh yeah.
He was
Sterling Golden.
Guy.
Yeah, Terry Bollea, man. He was, Rick Rude could never. He had the arms and the legs in that, and just absolutely went off. And yeah, that scene was wild too. Like they protected the business in that scene. It was absolutely wild stuff. Talking about wrestling booking though, man, like they protected Rocky quite a bit in that movie, if I can say. Like I like the idea that, Mick, I don't believe that it's meant to be interpreted that Mick was like booking tomato cans for him, but he was very selective in who he was going to face up against Rocky to make sure Rocky always had the advantage in the matchup of styles, So he's not bringing in Obafemi to challenge Dragunov. You know what I mean? Like he's not bringing in the Brock Lesnar's and these guys and the Omos's. So like he already knows, and I love it that they even splice little shots of him scouting Clubber Lang by himself, like just being like, no, this guy is not for us. And he keeps trying to find little sideways of telling Rocky, nope, he's not the guy. We're not giving him a shot. We're not doing any of that. We need to get him out. And so anyway, he does that. And honestly, I understand why, because they go through, Mickey Mickey dies and Rocky loses the fight in the same time. And it's just like, talk about protecting your baby face, you know, and everything. His head's not right and stuff. I know they had to get from point A to point B to bring Apollo in to help teach him another aspect of fighting, you know, instead of just being a heavy hitter. You know, it's teaching Sheamus to turn into Rey Mysterio, you know, like it's just, you know, he was just a big, just a big hunk of meat, just throwing bombs all the time. But I also kind of would have liked it if Clubber just beat him straight up, which I mean, he did, but like, because I think there was enough meat on the bone of the story to be like, Rocky just lost sight of things because he got too comfortable with being on top. And he also wasn't really listening to Mickey telling him, hey, there's more than one reason why you're on top and you're still on top. And so like, you don't want this guy. Guy's a killer. He's a killer. He's going to kill you. You know, like, I'm not just being hyperbolic here. And so, you know, I thought they could have had Clubber just beat him because I think, you know, you were quoting it just now, a few minutes ago. The downfall to Clubber is that he's like, I'm a lone wolf. I train alone, you know, fight alone, you know, I do everything on my own, which means he's not open to evolution and training from others. And that ended up being the thing that Rocky really needed to, you know, to step up his game, was to study from the Apollos of the world, of the boxing world, and you know, round out his game a little bit. Honestly, like Rocky 3 is a fantastic wrestling angle that could work for somebody. Like just the way those work out. Like, could you imagine like Cody or Roman, vice versa, or Punk or Roman, like training the other one, you know, to take down Brock or whoever, you know, to be like, this is what you're missing out of your game. Like, let me help you. Like,
if they played it straight, though, I can't trust anybody in wrestling.
Oh,
Everybody's turning heel. Everybody's going
100%. A straight up, this is business alliance for that, you know, that kind of thing. Like Punk or Cody go into Roman to help him beat Seth when Seth comes back eventually. Like the guy that you could never get the best of, really. I think wouldn't be a bad thing. But yeah, like George is saying, like Clubber didn't listen to his manager. Exactly. It's a lot of a story about listening to the voices of knowledgeable people around you and not trying to do it all on your own. But yeah, Rocky 3, total evolution of time and culture.
Well, you know, it's interesting you would say that as well, because this is another example of, like you had said, Clubber didn't listen to his manager. He was trying to protect his man, because that's what a manager is supposed to do. You're supposed to protect your client. You're supposed to guide them in the best way possible. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Clubber Lang had one fighting style, and it worked for him really throughout the entirety of the film, up until that last point, after Rocky had to change up his fighting style to the gratitude of Apollo. And I'll tell you what's interesting. For people that don't really know, the 80s, it was a very interesting time for movies. There was a lot of what I didn't even know and didn't understand at the time. There was a lot of racism in a lot of these 80s films. And I've gone back and I've watched Rocky 3, and the reality is Paulie was a racist.
100%.
He was an old school racist.
100%. Yeah, and old school racist is right too. Like he just had a racist like mentality. He wasn't like trying to antagonize nobody. He just had the wrong way of thinking from the foundation. Like
from the foundation, because he came from a different time, a different era, and that's what I'm saying. Like he was, and I don't know if he roughed Adrian up at all, but Adrian had there was a little fear in.
She had a little battered woman syndrome. When Rocky first met her, she looked like a dog who'd been beat a little too much.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
And you see her when they fall in love, she starts to get a little more confident. And a
Yes.
little more talking about like she finds her safety and then in him, and then doesn't have to put up with Polly's crap anymore.
So it was funny. You look at Rocky 3, he's going into this all black boxing training room, and you have
I
Paulie saying what he's saying,
yeah.
and I'm just, I've gone back as an adult male, an African
I'm
American male, I'm like, did he really just say that?
I'm not laughing at the stuff Paulie says either. I'm just remembering like getting uncomfortable in that scene, and there was a line that got delivered that popped me out loud. I don't laugh out loud a lot at movies when I'm by myself anymore, but like one thing I'll notice that can account for a lot of the stylistic changes of 3 and 4, not just it being the 80s, but Avildsen left the director's chair and Stallone started directing them
Mhm,
starting with 3. So
mhm.
Stallone took over directorial duties starting with Rocky 3 as well. When they're in the gym, yeah, and
Oh, he
Paulie,
directed Rocky too.
he also I thought Appleton directed 2 as well. Okay, so he just directed the first one, the best one, at least from a story
Yeah, I'm
standpoint.
not
Yeah,
quite
you're right.
sure how it went
Stallone
from one
took
to
over with
two.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Stallone took over at 2. Appleton probably had his fill, and then he went and made the Karate Kids.
Hmm.
Um, but Paulie is saying all the stuff he's saying, and then we get Duke, who, by the way, Duke, just love Duke. Like he's not he's such an unsung hero
Yeah.
of that franchise, Apollo's corner man who comes on the team. But like I can't remember who it was. If it was just one of the random guys working out in the gym, or if I don't think it was Apollo, maybe it was Duke, just being like, "What's with this guy?" And Rocky's like, "Hey, listen, hey, you got to know him. Just get to know him for about 6 years, and and then they cut him off." And it's like, if you just get to know, like I felt that in my soul about certain family members, or friends. Like if you get to know him for about 6 years, you kind of get used to it, kind of thing.
But I
It's
tell you
just a
what's
throwaway
interesting.
line.
Rocky 3, and this is the point where I feel like the only one of the saving graces for me in Rocky 4 was the fact that you finally had well, not necessarily, but ultimately Rocky fighting somebody who wasn't black. Like, it was 1,
Yeah,
2, and 3. You know what I mean? They were
yeah.
always fighting. It was a very interesting. And so after 3, I mean, but they went back to that well. We'll get to it.
Mm.
And I kind of understand, kind of don't understand. I just feel like, you know, if they had done that again in Rocky 4, at that point I would have been like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing?
At
What
that
are we
point, it's a
saying?
trend. Yeah, at that point, it's a
You know what I
trend
mean?
for sure.
Yeah.
Like it's a continued story with 1 and 2, with it
Yes.
being Apollo. Apollo is the champion. So like in that way, Apollo, I would say he's not so much an antagonist as he is something to achieve. Like he
Right.
is the mountaintop. Um, but once Rocky's on top, I mean, I understand. I feel like it's probably a blend of a few things. They probably because Mr. T was on the come up, I think, a little bit in terms of being famous, although all the big stuff that we know him for really kind of came after that. So this really kind of gave him
Hmm.
his launch. But yeah, they needed somebody mean looking, strong, and vicious. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But and obviously the Drago and 4, I mean, they're going the whole international route and the Cold War stuff. So he was if he did somehow end up being black, we'd have a lot to answer for. Um,
Well, you had a in Rocky 3, you had a black guy helping a white guy fight a black guy. In Rocky 4, it was kind of the same thing.
yeah, a white guy
But kind of,
avenging a
yeah.
black guy against another white guy. Rocky
But then you
5,
go into Russia and you have the black trainer helping the white guy fight the white guy. It was interesting.
Rocky 5's even worse because then you got the Don King character who's the real villain
Oh
of
my
it, man.
gosh. Okay, look,
Anyway, but
look,
but
look.
also that's
We got to
that's
get to it.
also
Oh,
art imitating life in a way too, because that was clearly a ripoff of King. But nevertheless, I do want to talk about Creed too, which I really love. So I'm just going to push through. But Rocky 3, I mean, listen, I think if I view it as like it is the first like popcorn movie
Yeah.
of this series. 3 and 4 are all-time popcorn movies. I mean, they in that respect. The first two films are really just really well made films.
Yeah.
But yeah, popcorn movies all the way for 3 and 4. So Rocky 4, man. Rocky ends the Cold War, man. This is peak cartoonish silliness for me, and that doesn't mean
Oh
that I don't
man.
like it. It is such Saturday morning cartoon
Yeah.
style. Like there's so many things that like I want to criticize about it, but I have to say, after everything, I will still watch it every time it's on TV. Like, I mean, I'm just
Absolutely.
like still connected
Absolutely.
to it. Like Drago
It's
is a
done right.
great villain. He's a great
Yes.
villain. And also I will say this, other than maybe Clubber Lang, I'm trying to think. Rocky does normally humanize the other boxers eventually. Because
Yeah.
Even Drago is like, I'm a fighter. I'm not a politician. You know, I fight for me, not for my country, not for my government. You know, I use steroids for me, not for my government. You know, all this stuff. So anyway, um, but yeah, it is a weird, not weird, but it is a kind of it's a wild ride. You know, you get Eye of the Tiger back, crazy good soundtrack for Rocky 4 as well. And yeah, we lose Apollo, and just the craziest like pro wrestling style. Somebody in the dang match. Is
He's got to be
just
dead.
vicious.
My God. Yeah.
Hitman has a family, he has a son we don't even know about yet. And somebody
Oh
save his
man.
trunks. Yeah, so it's a wild ride for sure. James Brown shows up in this movie, like it's just absolutely nuts. Rocky
Hey,
4,
living in
man.
America is a banger, though. It's a banger.
It is. It is. Hearts on Fire, The Burning Heart, like
Yeah.
it's all good, man. For Survivor,
And even
all those
Adrian down,
sport bands.
you can't win. I
Oh,
mean,
right.
oh, Adrian, you know, that just that hit the heart right there.
Yeah.
Direct shot.
No easy way out. Shoot, man. That's all it kicks, man. So many like music videos in this movie. This was
Yeah.
1985. This was like peak MTV time. This was like it was like 3 or 4 music videos in this movie. For it. But I tell you what, man, it stirs all the emotions. Like it feels kind of like the most WWE of all the movies. Like
Yeah.
it's a bunch of moments, and the music and the sort of it's like a bunch of banger entrances almost, you know, in the movie. If the storytelling is the true meat of the story and everything of the movie, like this is like, yeah, I think there's so many frills to this movie that work really well, that have really kind of helped the film stand the test of time. It is a hilarious task to try to explain Rocky 4 to someone who has not actually been around it, though.
That
Or
is
really
true. That is
experienced it.
true. Yeah.
Well,
It
he
was
fights. Yeah, it's crazy.
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, like, he fights in Russia on Christmas Day and
Yeah.
convinces the crowd pretty much to stop hating Americans. And like he brokers world peace through a 12-round boxing match. It's just, yeah, it's bananas.
Well, you know, it's funny you would say that because Sophie Dopey had brought up Police Academy. If no one has ever seen Police Academy, talking about some interesting zany films. Even they went to, you know, Russia for some inexplicable reason.
Right. Mission in Moscow.
Which is just crazy to think about. The thing is, for me, it should have stopped at Rocky 3. Quite honestly, it should have stopped at Rocky 3. If it wasn't for Rocky 4, we wouldn't have had Rocky 5. Because just like Rocky 1 and 2, Rocky 4 and Rocky 5 literally picks up right where Rocky 4 ended, literally in the shower.
Yeah.
Like it's the match is just ended.
Mm-hmm.
And something inside me broke. I know we're not on Rocky 5 yet, but it wouldn't
It's a
have
good
happened.
transition point.
It was a great transition for an otherwise
I mean, the
garbage film.
conversation for us to talk about Rocky 5.
But people have to understand, especially like Sophie Dover was born in 85 and some people are born in 85. The Cold War was serious. For people that just don't understand, it was the whole Ruski USSR. It was so palatable at that time. The tensions were so high between us and them, and you saw it in some of the music and the movies, White Knights, what have you.
Red Dawn, baby.
Red Dawn. It made sense that they decided, okay, let's just do a cheap pop film.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Rocky 4 was.
Oh, it was Hulk Hogan and Nikolai Volkov.
Was trash. Yeah, Nikolai Volkov. There you go. Nikolai Volkov. You had a Russian guy fighting in America. I mean, what better character could you have at that time?
Mm-hmm.
So even with the Iranian war, with the Iron Shiki baby. So it made sense.
You're an NWA guy.
But let's just be honest here. Okay. The film was fine. Drago was an enhanced athlete.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. Yeah, like they have to, not only is he evil because he's a communist, he's from Russia, he also uses performance enhancers as well.
Performance enhancers.
Yeah.
And speaking of performance enhancers, Sylvester Stallone has said, I don't know if you're aware of this, he's a fan of HGH. He takes it to this day. Okay, the man's well into his 70s. He takes it.
Doesn't surprise me.
If you look at the body transformation, not even so much between 1 and 2, he was still pretty much the same. But 3, he bulked up, and I thought that was the perfect physique for Rocky. In Rocky 4, it got okay, hold on now. Are you who's really on the juice here, Balboa? What's really going on? His physique was out of this world, and he was still able to beat the Russian. And then it just kind of went down from there. It was a very interesting, you know what I mean?
You know what would have made that final fight far more entertaining? If Jesse the Body Ventura was on the call. Looks to me like Balboa's on the juice here, Gorilla. Why don't we get him drug tested?
What do you think about that, McMahon?
Yeah. I don't even know what he's taking. I'm staying in the Baja.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, so good. Yeah. We needed a good heel commentator for that match.
That would have been great.
I still have I have an unapologetically, guilty pleasure of Rocky 4. I would have been, but I do think that would have been the closing point. Like the natural closing point, if Rocky is no longer going to be competitive in the ring, then that's the story. Like I think that we don't really need we just don't need that. I don't think we needed the next 2 movies, which I guess it's good a time as any to get into those. So like the Rocky franchises goes from what do you want to call it, underdog to champion to retiree, and Rocky 5, which I can't believe it, but that it was my age, and when I came up, that was the first Rocky movie I got to see in a theater. Which I'm so bummed out. I know, right? I'm so bummed out. I was so disappointed that the final fight in that movie didn't take place in a ring, because I had already been raised on wrestling at that point. This was this 89 when it came out? So 90. This was 90. This came out. The mega powers had already exploded, when this movie came out. So like, I'll tell you what, I will say this, a little bit of grace to it. I went back and watched it again last week, and the drama of the film is actually not bad, but they had already conditioned the audience to a different kind of Rocky movie. It's like, and we'll talk about this chat. We're mulling around the idea of doing Star Wars next after this episode. The next time we get together this conversation, but it's a little like that sequel trilogy where you start off with J.J. Abrams, you move over to Ryan Johnson, and they're like, oh no, we got to go back to J.J. Abrams, and like the entire philosophy of the movie has whiplash, and so Rocky Five, almost like spiritually or philosophically speaking, is almost a truer Rocky Three. Like it goes back to Rocky being a more humble living guy, and trying to remember what's really important in life and all this other stuff. But coming off the heels of Rocky Four, which was like peak cartoonishness and excess and 80s stuff, it was just so like you can't go back to the 70s after that, not that soon. And so him just going back to having nothing again, and Tommy Gunn. This is also too when I started noticing how corny the boxer names were getting.
Mhm.
Tommy the Machine Gun, and then Mason the Line Dixon. I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on. Nevertheless, they had that, and then I just the Don King, character, it was just brutal. And I mean, like, he is an antagonist. You're supposed to hate him, and I did. But like so much of that movie, we had already been conditioned to see like more fighting in the movie.
Yep.
And like I wanted to see more, like, because like Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, you're either seeing Rocky or Apollo or Drago, you're seeing these titular characters, being pretty engaging in the ring. Like Rocky 3 had a lot of Rocky in-ring action between Hogan and Mr. T. And it just dawned on me that it's Hogan and Mr. T, the WrestleMania tag team in Rocky 3. Never mind.
Yeah.
But like, and the montage of tomato cans that he destroyed. Like, you see Rocky in the ring a lot in those movies. Even at the end, at the very end credits, the shot of him and Apollo having one more match that nobody's watched, that nobody witnesses, that gets brought up in Creed. And all of that, I don't know, man, I just didn't like it. Like, and it felt very like after school special, kind of the tension with him and his son, and him being more interested in the other fighter. And yeah, the whole street fight thing, I didn't love it. Although at the end, I got a little bit of a kick out of him knocking out the Don King character when he said he was going to sue him. And he was like, for what? Because he's like, I'm broke. Like, what are you going to get? What are you going to get out of me? But yeah, man, Rocky 5 wasn't it for me. Although it got worse for me. I cared even less about Rocky Balboa. But let me know what are your thoughts on Rocky 5?
Well, I think this is where we're okay. This is going to be the Rocky Balboa is going to be an interesting conversation because I think we're going to disagree, homeboy.
Good. Let's hear it.
But
get there.
Rocky 5 was trash. It was absolute trash. There was no, and this was directed by John Avildsen as well, and that's why I was so shocked. I'll tell you what this was. Like you said, with the cartoonish nature that we had with 3 and especially with 4.
Still written by Stallone, though.
Still written by Stallone. We had Rocky 4. Basically, we had Batman and Robin. If anybody saw that ridiculous nonsense, and that's like, okay, that assuming that we had Batman and Robin, and then all of a sudden they decide to switch gears, and then we get Batman 2. Okay,
yeah,
it just did it the sudden flip like that. Somebody turned out the lights. It didn't make sense. And this is from a personal standpoint. There are a few things that I just don't care for. Okay. I hate the fact that you have Paulie made some bad investments, whatever you want to call it, ultimately put him back in the poorhouse.
Right.
So you had a man, and this is something that I felt like with oh crap, what's the name of that movie? With Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
48 Hours?
48 Hours. Okay, another 48 Hours.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the body type between Rocky 1 and 2 and Rocky 4, completely different.
Yeah.
Rocky 1 clothes would not fit on Rocky 4 body.
Yeah.
They just would not. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's why I say with 48 hours. 48 hours, Eddie Murphy was like this. Another 48 hours, Eddie Murphy had been eaten.
Been eating at McDowell's.
He's been eating at McDowell's. Okay, and yet he's wearing the same outfit.
Yeah.
I need you to stop. I need you to stop. The thing about filmmaking, they told me this in film school, and you know this as well. There's a suspension of disbelief where you're going into this with you got to hang it at the door to a certain extent. We do. But if you're doing something so outside the realm of reality to where this is supposed to be like, the very next day, and yet you're back in the streets of Philly wearing the same fit that you wore when you were working for a bookie, it doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. It didn't make any sense. It just was such a hard shift. And to have this obvious Don King character, it wasn't needed. And then you have this boxer in Tommy and whatever the heck that was, then you want to do this thing in the streets. The film just didn't make sense. It wasn't Rocky. And oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying I never bought the partnership between Rocky and Tommy.
No.
Like, we'll get there when you think about Creed and Rocky. Like, with what Donnie and Rocky, like, that had me in tears.
Mm-hmm.
This was just this. It was like Rocky 2, where he wanted. He felt like he needed to stay away from the ring, but in Rocky 2 he felt like he needed to stay away from the ring because he thought he proved his point and he didn't need to do it. And then he discovered that he just really wasn't good at anything else in life, and he felt a pull back to the ring because he felt like that was his best chance to provide for his family, and it was something he knew he was good at. And then on the other hand, in Rocky 5, he can't go back to the ring because you're thinking that he might die if he gets back in the ring again. And you've got this Don King character trying to goad him into getting back in the ring. And it's just so what's the word? Cognitive dissonance. Like, it was just so, such a dissonant thing. Like, I like, what are we even doing here? Like, why do you feel like you need to go back? Like, you're living a humble life again. You're not doing it for the money anymore. Like, you are living humbly, but like, pick your son. And so he still loves, I get it, he still loves boxing. And so, like, and Mickey's gym is the only thing that they own that wasn't, peed away by Paulie or his business associate or whatever. And so he has that, and he's training people, that's fine and stuff, but there just wasn't any, I didn't buy the chemistry between them as characters at all. Which made the betrayal not really mean anything either,
Nope.
And also
a mile away. Nope.
Yeah, nothing there. So we agree that Rocky 5 is definitely circling the bottom of the list for that. But so Balboa, so let take the wheel on Balboa. I want to hear what you got to say there, because I'm not going to put up a strong fight. I'm not going to put up a strong fight about it, but and a lot of that Rocky 5 is to blame for, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's bring it.
Well, he's stuck in a situation that like I said, he shouldn't have been put in. The reality is, if it wasn't for Rocky 4, there wouldn't have been a Rocky 5. If it wasn't for Rocky 5, you wouldn't have Rocky Balboa. So these were just a series of unfortunate events that really shouldn't have taken place. Yeah. I take umbrage with, and I've said this before when we talked about Marvel, I don't like my superheroes dying. I just don't. Mm-hmm. It's just a personal thing. I never will. I just don't like it. It shouldn't happen. As garbage as Rocky 5 was, you had Rocky Balboa that I felt was what Rocky 5 should have been. And I wish that I could erase Rocky 5. Like, I'm a big Star Trek fan. The original cast, you had Star Trek 5, which was the worst of the 6 films that the original cast did. Star Trek 5 was directed by William Shatner, and it was just as crappy. It insisted upon itself. Okay.
It insists upon itself.
I never liked it. But
Yeah.
with Rocky Balboa, the thing that I liked about it is for the most part, it felt it finally had, like, if you're all in on Back in the Neighborhood, Rocky, it is what it is at this point. It for me, it had the feeling of the old Neighborhood and the old
Mhm.
Rocky, with a I can't remember the year that film came out, but with that modern day sheen on it. The films back in the 70s and whatnot, obviously it wasn't high def, so it had that kind of, you know,
A
that kind of
graininess to it.
grainy, yeah, exactly. So the film it gave me that feeling of he's finally back in the neighborhood and he's settled into his life. Um, I believed that you had Apollo's trainer talking about, listen, you don't have this, you don't have that, you've got calcified this. Let's just build some hurting bombs. Um, you know, I, there wasn't really, from my perspective, there wasn't really a point for Rocky to do what he did. It felt too close to Creed and
Yeah.
wanting to fight Drago. Like, I gotta prove something. You really don't. You really don't. You've got your life. You lost, and this is the thing. This is and when I was saying this earlier, this is also the biggest thing for me. The loss of his wife.
Mhm.
Listen, listen,
How much better would Creed would have been if Adrian had been around for that movie too?
listen. You got to stop, Stallone. You got to stop. There was there was this much reason to kill off Adrian. There was no reason at all. Adrian was his jelly to his peanut butter. He
Mhm.
just could not, he wasn't a whole man. When they met, it was like two pieces of that, that broken locket that just fits into place.
Mhm.
That's what that was. And that's what
Exactly.
they gave us. And you took it away. You took it
You
away.
you don't it's irresponsible to tell a Rocky-centric story without her, because every other movie, she was his anchor, and so, like,
Thank you.
for her not to be there is no point in telling the story, and that, honestly, I feel like it was pretty cool that I think he parlays that emotion to Donnie and Creed. Like, not that, there's anything weird going on between them, but, like, all that love he still has to give, he can now be a mentor to the son of the guy of the competitor that he owes his whole career to, who, he can be a father to him, and like and there's that continued strain with his son
Yeah.
too, which is weird to me because they were cool at the end of Rocky 5.
Yeah.
And also, this is pretty sad. I don't know what the timeline is, but I know that Stallone legit lost his son, and
Mm,
who played himself, who played Rocky's son in Rocky 5.
yeah.
So they recast in Balboa. I don't know if he had already passed at that point or if that came later.
Yeah.
But you had, Milo Ventimiglia, who was from Heroes and This Is Us. Great actor. Love him as an actor, but him coming in as Rocky's son too. I don't know, like that whole disjointed relationship, especially with Adrian not being in the picture at all, and like Paulie is just a, I don't know, he's just there. Um, Everything like Rocky 5 took something out of me,
Mhm.
and I just didn't really feel anything with Rocky Balboa. So like I think by virtue, it's maybe not the worst one. I just am so indifferent about it at that point. I'm just
If I'm ranking
yeah,
them, it's Rocky 1, 2, 3, uh, 4, Balboa, and then 5,
fair
as
enough.
far as best to worst.
Yeah.
It 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 just it again, it felt like a cheap pop to me to take out a character that didn't need to be taken out.
Yeah.
There was nothing leading up to that, and he needed that anchor. He didn't have it. So now it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feel synonymous with Rocky. And honestly, this is something that I've argued with my teachers in film school about all the time, is that there's this old Hollywood mentality that characters just have to die to push another character's story arc over. And I'm like, yes and no.
Right.
It's a cheap Hollywood trick. We're gonna just kill off a character, and that's gonna you don't have to do it. It just needs to stop. It just needs to stop. I
Yeah.
can't say it the other way. There is no legitimate reason for her to die. It didn't do anything for Rocky, except let's just have a restaurant named after her in remembrance of her. Who cares? Who
Right.
cares? It did nothing to serve the story. It was a cheap pop.
I wanna give a shout out to All Over Jay in the chat as well. A few minutes ago, he pointed out a point too. Like they had a grown version of the kid. You know, the first Rocky, or maybe it was the second. It was one of the first two Rockies. He's walking a little girl home, you know, who's
Yeah.
hanging out with the wrong crowd and everything. Well, she grows up and has a kid, and now he's trying to get her to come work at the restaurant and stuff. And I know he's trying to sort of be like a father figure, mentor to her in the movie, but like it doesn't come off that way in
Mm.
the movie either. Like it just that doesn't hit the way you know it just doesn't hit the way that I think he was aiming for. And it just didn't do it for me. So yeah, I mean those last two proper Rocky movies were for sure the bottom of the barrel for me. But that being said, there were pieces of storytelling going on in those last two movies that were revived um, in Creed, and now we can get to these Creed films. And I want to say this: 2015, was it 2015 or 2016 when Creed first came out? Um, we were really getting into the franchise revival craze.
Yeah.
This was right around the same time Star Wars came back. Right around a similar time Cobra Kai came around. And I'm going to say this unequivocally and without shame and 10 toes down. Creed might be the best franchise revival tribute movie of the bunch of
Mm.
them all. Um, Ryan Coogler is the man. He's got almost all hits, no misses in his directorial slate.
True. True.
Um, Michael B. Jordan was really Michael B. Jordaning in this movie. He was fantastic. Tessa Thompson, love for Tessa as well, in that role. And Stallone really embraces who Rocky is at this stage of his life really well, particularly in this movie. And and even hey, Claire Huxtable, Felicia Rashad comes in uh to play Creed's Apollo's wife, which I know is a recast as well,
Yeah.
but she was wonderful in those roles as well. And the opening scene in that movie, well, the opening scene that I remember is her going to the juvie center to go adopt him, basically. And just a beautiful, beautiful scene. And listen, as an adoptive father, I'm gonna have certain biased feelings about the story of this movie, anyways. But her coming in to explain who she was and how they were, connected. He's standing in the corner of that cell. I mean, is what you can call it, with a clenched fist after having gotten into a fight with other kids. And when she says, "You can come stay with me," his hand opens up. He didn't say anything, and it's just his hand releases. You see
Yep.
the tension. So I don't know who that kid was, but that was a fantastic performance. Fantastic nonverbal acting performance. It's a wonderful story. It is the Rocky Five we should have gotten a long time ago.
Mm.
I'm glad it came along when he did. It was far better. It is. We say this in the church that Jesus was the better Adam. He was the better David. Any heroic Old Testament character, you say Jesus is the truer and better version. Creed was the truer and better Rocky Five, for sure. You have this mentoring story, but now it's I really like it because they're able to center it. It's Creed's struggle to figure out to wrestle with his identity
Yes.
and figure out who he is and who he wants to be in light of learning who he is. And Rocky settles into a really great mentoring role where he's not really the main character of this movie anymore.
Right.
And he settles into an excellent supporting role, is exactly who he needs to be. And I'm telling you, man, that last fight, I still go back and watch the YouTube clips of that last fight to this day, and in that film. I'll just say one or two more things, and then I'll turn it over to you because like I just hit the ground running on Creed. I absolutely love this film. It's probably my second. It's probably my second favorite out of all of them, behind maybe the first Rocky. And his confession at the end, it's very dovetailing of the original Rocky. Like Rocky says, if I can just go the distance with him, I can prove I'm not a bum. And when Creed gets knocked out in that right before that last round, it has like it's like his life flashing before his eyes, and then he sees Apollo and just gets up like the breath of God has entered his lungs. Like it's in crazy. It's just crazy. And when he just says, "I've got to prove that I'm not a mistake," is just like one of the hardest lines out of the entire franchise. And I see that now going back. Like at first I was like, man, Rocky is really hurting over that line because he knew Apollo and he knew Apollo would have loved him probably, and all this other stuff. But now going back and watching them all, I think Rocky's also remembering where he was when he had to prove where he was in the ring.
Yeah.
He's probably thinking of all those things at the same time. So he's like, well, then get up and go knock him down. He's like, you've taught me how to fight. I'm going to teach you how to fight. Get up and do it. And this last thing I'm going to say, it's that moment of the movie. It's such a wrestling moment, AJ. It's like this is the blueprint for why I don't like what we would call spot fest matches and a match that builds to one huge moment. Because you remember the huge moment if it only happens once, right? If you have 30 table spots in a match, you don't really remember any of them, right?
Right.
It's at that moment where they connect and he says, go knock him down. It's the only time you hear the Rocky theme in that movie. And that's when he stands up and that's when the trumpets are going. And I read a review somewhere that was quoting like New York Times, some big hoity-toity film snob critic article being like, I watched this film with a room full of film critics who have long been jaded by stuff. And I heard more clapping and standing ovations at that moment in that movie. Is like that collectively broke the cynicism of the room in that scene. It's like just the echoing of those trumpets in that one moment of the movie. And they made you wait for it. He didn't do it, in his training montage. It was all very much his own identity. And then they remind you who this man really is, who the spirit of this fighter really is. And that fight scene was fantastic. It was just excellent. So yeah, absolutely love it. All right, man. I could keep drooling over that movie. You tell me what you got about Creed.
I loved it. I loved it. I thought Creed was an excellent film, except for the use of the Rocky music. It doesn't belong to Creed. It doesn't belong to Creed, at all. Even with Rocky being an integral part in that aspect of it, it never ever in any of the previous films got played for any other boxer except for Rocky. It's Rocky specific. Did not care for that. It was interesting to see this young man coming up fatherless because of his father's actions in Rocky 4. It's also interesting because I was looking at the character of Rocky, knowing that And this is in the timeline between Rocky 4 and Creed. What are we talking about here? Now, I don't mean like the film came out. I mean like in the
years
timeline
of the movie.
of Rocky. Yeah.
Well,
We're
I guess
talking like
you're probably looking at about 20 years, I guess.
about 20 years.
20. I mean, well, I mean, if you're looking in film release, you're looking at about 30 years.
Right.
If I'm guessing what Donnie's age would be, I mean, I'm guessing he's in his mid 20s or so, mid to late 20s.
All right, we'll just say decades then. We'll say decades.
Yeah.
That Rocky is carrying around this weight for decades. He had the towel in his hand. He had the ability to save him.
Mhm.
And Apollo just said, no, let me go out on my shield. Apollo would have, I don't know if the man that Apollo was, I don't know if he would have gotten over Rocky throwing in the towel.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think Rocky knew that.
Too much pride
about him. Too much pride. He couldn't have lived that down, honestly. So, in knowing that Rocky's carrying around this weight, and then you finally are faced with his son as a grown man, Rocky's at a point in his life where he's had to make peace with a lot of stuff and a lot of grief and a lot of sorrow and a lot of loss. And he's at a point now where he's basically settled. Basically. It was giving me, I don't know if you watched Batman Beyond. I thoroughly enjoyed Batman Beyond. It was giving me Batman Beyond vibes with old Bruce Wayne. It always killed me to see Bruce Wayne like that and walking with a cane and taking heart medicine. Hated it, but he was training the young cat to come up and do the fight that he couldn't do. But again, this is it's not like he knew the kid and he was in the gym training with Rocky and his dad, and then his dad died. It wasn't like that. This was cold. You know, this kid has his path went a whole different direction that I don't think his dad would have liked and necessarily would have approved. And so he's trying to come up in a world that is confusing to him, and to have Rocky carry decades worth of, you know, I don't have the, but let's just say like he's got that towel in his hand. He's been holding this, he's been carrying this weight forever. There was a movie, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's with Robert De Niro. We actually we played this film when we went to a retreat, men's retreat years ago, where he played like a conquistador or something. And he carried around all of the armaments of everybody that he's ever fought over time as sort of like a penance. So he just has this like he in a string and it's in a bag, and he's pulling it through like rivers and like he's refusing to let it go. It's a penance for him that he has to atone for. And it gets heavier and heavier the more he keeps putting it in here. And I feel like that's what Rocky was doing. Rocky was carrying this weight with him for so long that this was a way to kind of atone for something that could have gone different. It could have gone right, and instead it went left. I really appreciated that. And then you have this young man who's just trying to find his own way. And you know, in relationship to Rocky, like, okay, I'm gonna like we're not here, but I'm gonna like it was a very interesting dynamic that I felt was a I can't call it a Rocky sequel, but it was a good Rocky accompaniment, if you will.
A legacy film, yeah.
A legacy film, exactly. It really stood out in that respect. But like I said, I absolutely take umbrage with the use of the Rocky theme song. Absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah. We just going to eternally disagree on that. I think that is I think that is the linchpin for like tying the two of them together. Like that is the cue to the audience. And I mean, you may see that and understand that too, and just not agree with it, which cool. That signaling to the rest of us that like here is my legacy, because like my son doesn't want anything to do with me. And not only that, but as we're talking all of these movies in a row, it's reminding me now, it's like, it's not just the penance of the guilt of not throwing in the towel, but it's also a demonstration to pay it back because he says that to Donnie. He's like, I never got to thank Apollo for training me and getting me back on
Yes.
my feet. So I'm going to do that for you. And also that, Rocky's dying at this point. He loves giving people cancer. And so he's like, you've inspired me to fight back and not give up on this sickness.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to fight back, then you have to fight back. So it's like basically making a deal like, if I'm not going to throw in this towel, you need to go finish this fight.
Yeah.
And he does, and I mean he does it in a very Rocky One style. He knocks his opponent down for the first time in his opponent's career, and earns his spot at the table, just like he did in the first film. And I think the sort of moral victory of proving that you belong hits me a lot harder than just winning the prize, because you don't always earn people's respect when you win the prize. People have excuses all the time for why they lose, but if you earn their respect, whether you win or lose, that changes how they look at you. And I love that. And so, so and for what it's worth, I actually kind of like that you only got a needle drop of it too. They didn't play the whole song. They only gave you like 10 seconds of it, and so that being what it is, I think that made it for me. George wants us to talk about Donnie meeting Bianca. I gotta say that part didn't. Nothing wrong with it. I love Bianca as a character. Love Donnie as a character. That didn't register with me a ton. I was probably more attuned to the mentoring relationship in that movie than the romantic one. But do you have any thoughts?
The food aspect of it stood out for me. It goes back to, what did she call it? Tessa used a very specific accent that I can't do.
Yeah.
It's just the pronunciation of certain words, and she called this a John?
Oh, that's a Philly stuff right there. Yeah, it's a John.
Yeah. I can't really do the Philly thing, but it's I love the aspect of that relationship coming together, because it was contentious in and of itself, but at the same time, like, you had a hurdle that you had to get over.
She was not an Adrian. She was
not an Adrian.
A little submissive. No,
she was totally different. She was a fighter, and he had to battle to win that heart. It wasn't the same.
I did love too, like when he's moving out of the apartment building. I just happened to see this clip this week. And she's sitting on the window or whatever, just being like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Oh, me and my uncle gotta go train or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll see you around or whatever." And she goes, "Hey, D," he goes, "When were you going to tell me your uncle was Rocky Balboa?" Like, the town knows who he is. Like, why are you trying to pretend like he's just some dude? and he's like, "Oh, yeah, we're distant, whatever." But it's so funny. Also, kind of cute that Rocky's like, "Yeah, come over sometime when you want to," when Mickey was all like, "No women, kid," whatever. Just trying to do things differently, George also brings up the end of Creed where they're walking up the steps together, which I thought was sweet. That you've always got the scene at the library steps or museum, whatever it is, the big landmark there in Philly, which I will say, which I thought was cute. At the end credits of Rocky Balboa was the montage of just all these people from Philly running up the steps, like different, like kids, families. The Philly fanatic was there, and just like just kind of a testimony to the enduring legacy of the franchise. Dossie asked, "Would you consider Rocky IV a Christmas movie?" That's an interesting question.
I mean,
I would say no. And I know some people point to Die Hard as being a Christmas movie or not a Christmas movie. That's usually the linchpin of that argument. On the one hand, you've got like your Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Elf movies that are literally about Christmas. Die Hard, I would say Christmas is kind of a main character in the movie, but Rocky IV, just the final fight takes place on Christmas Day, and it doesn't even take place in America. So it's just not like Christmas is even all you see is Rocky's kid and his friends watching on TV with a Christmas tree in the background. Like that's as Christmas as it gets. Like he's not even with his
Yeah.
kid on Christmas Day. What a bum. No.
Yeah, that is true. He had a closed circuit TV that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I wouldn't be
Yeah.
how did you get Russian closed circuit TV, by the way, in your house? And
Yeah, and I had to say this real quick before I forget. I forgot to mention this. There's no way. You want to talk about a Hollywood ending. There was no way that the Ruskies, the old school USSR, these are people who obviously maybe didn't have any experience with the USSR.
Mhm.
They would not be cheering on the American. They would
No.
not be.
No.
You would not have turned the tide. I can change. You can.
No.
Pump your brakes, kid. You about to cross some lines. That's just
No.
Hollywood nonsense.
No. The Dodgers did not go into Toronto and have Blue Jays fans start cheering for them just because they did some amazing feats in baseball. No, that doesn't exist in hotly contested sports. I mean, I don't even say just watch the Olympics. Like, how often does the home country start cheering for some other country? Like,
yeah, it doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. That might have been one of the greatest fictions of that movie, but it was
but we still watch it.
Yeah, of course we still watch it. Absolutely, we do. Yeah, I got to say this, and so we can talk about Creed 2 and 3. Something I didn't say earlier: the real villains in these movies are promoters and and the press.
Yeah.
So like, you ever notice whenever someone's dying, there's just reporters keeping doctors from getting to a body? Like, and it happened with Mickey, and it happened with Apollo. And like, I hear Rocky go, "Hey, can we get a doctor in here? Can we get a doctor here?" I'm like, and then all you see is like Stallone.
Yeah.
Stallone hates the paparazzi, dude. You can't convince me that he's got a deep-seated hatred for the paparazzi and for the media, probably, which is just wild. Creed 2 had a heel promoter. Yet Rocky 4 had a heel promoter. Rocky 5 had a heel promoter, and so Balboa, I can't remember so much about Balboa. It kind of, but anyway, Creed 2, Creed 3. I gotta say, I didn't get to catch up with those two like I wanted to, and I really do want to go see Creed 2 again because I feel like I kind of left that one hanging. 2 and 3. What are your thoughts? I know we could go all night, but we don't need to because I know you got SmackDown tomorrow. By the way, A&B Convos going SmackDown tomorrow, so we got to let Abe say.
No, Friday. Today's Wednesday.
Oh, good grief! Thank you, man. Two days.
Yeah, I was about to say yes. Wait, no. We jumped the gun.
Sorry,
it's only hump day.
Week's got me all mentally irregular here. I'm just
like I liked that ain't us up there no more. I love that. I love that because you started seeing Rocky, who was still looking good. The fact that he looked so much bigger than he had in the previous 3 films, and he was already kind of on the downward spiral. Like, that's not up. We can't do that like we did no more. I was like, wait a minute, have you looked in the mirror? Because I kind of feel like you can.
Yeah, right.
But that's neither here nor there. No, Creed 2 was necessary. And just like Rocky 2 was. It felt a little more Rocky than it felt Creed. Of the marrying and the blending. You had Drago, who was coming in still salty, if you will, about the fact that he was beat in real life. He took his woman. Stallone took it all. When he said he took everything, I'm like, he sure did.
The pride took my woman. It's like 1985 Ric Flair here. You took it all. Oh gosh, right?
He sure did, man. So it was I liked it. I liked it because it was like, okay, we're gonna have the offspring, take the young bucks, if you will, go at it. And this time it's like what is that show, that pageantry show where you've got the kids doing the pageants. You got the pageant mom person. I forget what the show is. Yeah. It's like I'm living vicariously through my kid by any means necessary. What are you doing in Philly? What are you doing here? it was needed. It was necessary. It felt more, like I said, of a legitimate Rocky sequel to me than it felt like Creed, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. No, you're
Um,
you're dead on about that. It did not feel like a Creed story. It felt like, yeah, it felt like to tie up a loose end from a Rocky movie instead. Like, I
yes,
mean, how
yes,
much, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. Not that I think anybody's ever going to see this who grew up not knowing their father because their father was murdered by a Soviet boxer in an exhibition match or anything like that. But like, he didn't even know Apollo. And so, like, I understand the emotional need in the first Creed movie for him to validate his own path by knowing Apollo as a fighter and getting trained basically by his greatest rival and one of his best friends as this surrogate uncle figure now. But this guy, kills his dad in the ring, but he never had a relationship with his dad, and his dad didn't have a relationship with him. So, like, how much revenge are you really driven by? I don't know. Maybe if somebody, grew up without their father and they would still like, if I ever meet the man who did that, it's on site. Maybe, but like, I didn't really. That felt like more of something like you were talking about attributing to the first Creed movie. This to me felt like a thing Rocky wanted to atone for more
yeah,
than
yeah,
Creed.
yeah.
And I don't know about all that.
Well, I'll say this much. Uh,
Not that it was bad on
Creed,
its own, but it didn't
no,
feel as
no,
Creed centric.
but Creed is no Inigo Montoya. I will tell you that.
Mm.
I will tell you that.
You know Daisy. You know Daisy at all.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
I will say that.
Inigo
I
Montoya
I
said it was on
enjoyed the
site.
film for years. He said it was on site.
But but
That's
to be
vengeance.
fair, Inigo was his father's son. Like, he
Yes.
trained, like Inigo got to train with his father in sword play and stuff. So like, so that should be on site for the rest of your life, to the point of
Yeah.
where, like, I've been in the revenge business so long I don't know what to do with my life. Like, that's so I get that. It's absolutely, he absolutely is no Inigo.
Yeah.
But also I don't know that I would have believed it if he tried to be either. You know what I mean?
But it's kind of crazy. I mean, it kind of made sense for Drago in a way. You've got two guys who obviously can't go anymore, and he's now going to try to push this off on his son to avenge him.
Mm-hmm.
And but see, the thing that drives me nuts about that, honestly, is that's not how Rocky 4 ended. If you remember watching Rocky 4, even Drago was like, "Hey, I'm winning for me. This is about me to the
Right.
end." Like it
Yeah.
became like a sportsman thing, like they you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
the vibe that we got.
He was like, I don't fight for my, I'm not fight. He pointed at the fake Gorbachev up in the balcony and said, I don't fight for you. I fight for me. And even he gave Rocky the nod at the end where he was like, as we, the two of us killing each other is better than 20 million, like, even then he's like, I don't want to go to war. Even his wife, if you
Yeah,
watch
his
that
wife.
movie
Yes, yes.
if you watch that movie objectively, he and his wife are like, we're not here about politics. We want this fight in Russia because we don't feel safe here. Like,
Right.
in this country, because, you get where my husband's getting death threats, all this other stuff. And like, the sort of xenophobia doesn't play anymore in 2025 to where you're like, oh, stupid Russians, like, or whatever. And like Hulkamania is running wild. But like here, yeah, it makes sense. And like, so like they weren't really villainous. They were just, so if you guys are, was use some literary terminology. I hope my English teaching wife doesn't jump in and correct me if she overhears me. By the end of Rocky 4, Ivan and his wife, they weren't villains. They were just antagonists. Like,
Yes.
they were just on the other side of the conflict.
Yes.
But they weren't being evil. They were just
No.
fighting for their own greatness and advancement. And like, Drago wanted to be Rocky. He wanted to be the best. He was just in the wrong country, as far as it goes. And that plays out in the end. So yeah, like, this is a little bit of revisionism to come in there at Creed 2 to be like, oh, so they all abandoned you. They were already starting to abandon you at the end of that fight. I don't know.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
Exactly correct. Now, if and I understand this is not what they were doing at the time of Rocky Five with this
Mhm.
whole, we're bringing stuff back kind of a thing.
Yeah.
If at the beginning of Rocky Five, after Rocky was in the shower shaking up a storm, and he finally gets dressed, and he has a moment where some way somehow he crosses paths with Drago one last time in the hallway or something,
Mhm.
and there's a side eye from Drago, or maybe he's being berated by his trainer and his wife, like something. They didn't think of the future as
Yeah.
far as this character ever being brought back. I don't think there was ever any intent to bring Drago back into the picture until, like you had
You're
said, like 2015, they started doing this sort of thing.
I think you're unintentionally writing a better movie too. Because could you imagine the dichotomy of both Drago and Rocky losing everything after that fight?
Right.
And then you
Think about
give
it.
even more reason for them not to hate each other in Creed 2.
Think about it.
Or
Think
you could
about
at least start off with him blaming Rocky for it and Rocky being like, "Hey man, I lost everything too. My country didn't have my back when I fought for my country and I came back and they just said I owed back taxes." Like,
it.
I mean,
Man.
so I mean, they
Man.
honestly two sides of the same coin, which I will give them credit. They eventually got there in the movie, but the initial heel turn, so to speak, I don't know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
clicked super well. But that just leaves us with one last Creed, my friend. What do you what do you make of
Well,
Jonathan Majors entering the picture? Creed 3.
unfortunately, I didn't really watch Creed 3 all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces. I just
Okay.
haven't had the opportunity to sit down and watch it. And honestly, I wasn't all that interested in wanting to see it. It felt like it was going to be just a Creed film. I don't know if what involvement, if any, Rocky had. I don't know. I didn't really watch the film. I've seen some bits and pieces. Like I've seen the fight scene and I've seen some stuff in the middle. I like Jonathan Majors as an actor. Controversy aside, not getting to all that. I like him as an actor. I liked the choices that he made in what I saw. And you just basically have a guy like, look, you turned your back on me. We were supposed to be like this. It's a very typical story, quite honestly. I've seen it a million times. So I'm taking it all. I'm taking what was rightfully mine. I'm seeing this guy come up in my place. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Um I it, it it was kind of weak for me in that respect, but it was needed to have him have his own kind of, okay, now it's Creed 3. Let's get away from this aspect of it and let's just let it be you and me and our history. But it also got kind of artsy
Yeah.
with some of the scene, which it was a choice. Again, the thing about filmmaking is a thing called creative license. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. Creative license, you can have like I'm a big Batman fan. That's my favorite of the DC universe. And Batman is not a killer in the normal universe. I'm not talking about any of the split off universes. He's not a killer. Um and Batman 2, he killed somebody. I mean, he did. And that immediately took me out of, like, wait a minute, that's not what Batman is. Um, so that was creative license. And then you fast forward to the Val Kilmer. Um, uh, I'm not even
Batman
sure it was
Forever.
Val Kilmer, but definitely George Clooney, where you're now putting nipples on the
Oh yeah.
batsuit. That was creative license. Nobody
Mhm.
told you to put nipples on the batsuit. That was just not okay.
Who told you to put
Um,
nipples on the bat suit? I didn't tell you to put nipples on the bat suit. Why'd you put nipples on the bat suit?
Did they put the nipples on, or did you put the nipples on?
Yeah.
So
Who used them
it
all?
the creative license that they take with it, it was taking me out of it. It didn't, and here's the thing. Here's the thing, like you were saying with Rocky 5, how they had conditioned the audience prior to that.
Mhm.
My issue with this at this point with Creed 3, from what I saw, was I had still been conditioned, and again, I don't know. You have to correct me if he's in this. I don't really know, and if again how much he is, but they had conditioned me with Rocky, and they even still used some of the Rocky song in Creed 3. I was conditioned, Pavlov's dog, if you will, to correlate him with Rocky and Apollo Creed. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted this to be his own thing, totally separate of that. And then they chose this creative way of telling the stories and doing the boxing match, and it was odd. It was odd to me. It was weird. And the boxing, it didn't hold water with me. It didn't hold weight. There was something very it was very unrealistic. It's like, going back to pro wrestling, I've said this countless times on our show. Your one job in pro wrestling is to make us believe that what we're watching is real. That's your number one job. Don't phone it in. Don't fake it in. If I'm seeing you pull your punches, if I'm seeing you do this and you're hitting your own forearm and you're getting crazy, but you're taking me out of the reality of what it is that I'm seeing. I'm looking at these two guys punch each other, and I'm like, neither one of you are any Clubber Langs. I don't know how else to say it. Clubber Lang, it was Rocky 3, and you could hear the wind. Like, you knew how hard he was punching. I didn't get that feel. I didn't get that sense with either one of these guys. Their condition looked great. They had great body types in the film, but I just was not buying the boxing in this film at all. And I watched several scenes, and I'm just like, this is not doing it for me. And I don't know why they chose to do this. And it was giving me in an odd way, not that it was a musical, but it was giving me Joker Part 2 vibes, if you will. Like, nobody.
You're talking about the final fight, probably.
Nobody asked you to do this. Nobody asked you to do it this way. Why did you do that? It took me out of the film.
I think the issue there's a real tonal imbalance in the Creed movies, and that comes from having I think in part that comes from having three different directors. So Ryan Coogler directed the first Creed film. The second director was a guy who directed a Transformers movie and some other stuff. But Michael B. Jordan directed the third film himself. And I will say this, and he's proud of it, so this is no slam, but Michael B. Jordan's an anime nerd. And he clearly drew some inspiration from that and trying to put that in the final fight. And I respect his desire to want to be creative, but I don't think it executed well. Like, I don't think a boxing match, especially one, even though Stallone wasn't in this one, this really was truly a Creed story. You're still attached to this franchise. So we do have implicit expectations of what fights are going to look like in this movie. And so it was different. And because it's different, it did not resonate with me the same way the Rocky V fight didn't really resonate with me. Like, I didn't go to these movies to see street fights. I also don't go to see Goku versus whoever and fights either. Like, I want to see two dudes, just hash it out, throwing hands in the ring. And so I'm a little disappointed in the execution of the fight, but the story I thought had a lot of potential. I was actually really hyped when I saw the trailer for it because Jonathan Majors was looking like 1989 Mike Tyson in this movie. I don't know what his training regimen was. And I actually really liked the story being that, they were boys coming up and he got sent to jail and came back to see his friend on top of the world. And, they don't tell you this in the trailer, but he was the fighter out of the two of them. Like, he was the up and coming boxer, and he took the fall for both of them and went to jail to protect Creed at that time. And
Right.
so for him to come back, there's a pretty cold line in the trailer. I know that he says, you don't know what it's like being on the inside for 18 years watching somebody else live your life.
Yes.
And so I'm telling you, man, this is we take it back to wrestling all the time because that's who you and I are, and this is what our channels are about. The angle for this movie was fantastic. I would
Yes.
watch it was worthy of a WrestleMania. You know what it was, AJ? I'll tell you exactly what it was. This movie had a WrestleMania build, and then COVID hit, and we got ourselves a cinematic match instead of
Yeah.
an actual match. That's kind of what it was. Like, except you can have John Cena and Bray Wyatt do a cinematic match because Bray is weird and weird stuff works in cinematic matches. But if you can't have Gunther and Sheamus in a cinematic match, that's just strange because those are dudes who just get out in the middle of the ring and throw hands. And so if they had had the Stallone style Rocky 3, Rocky 4 boxing match at the end of Creed 3, I think it would have been a lot better. But I appreciate, and I'm sure there were probably, if I remember correctly, I think there were probably some disputes, not with Stallone and like Jordan or any
Hmm.
of the cast,
Hmm.
but like
Hmm.
the big wigs, the corporate,
Yeah, that's
all
right. That's right.
the
Yeah.
corporate entities about
Yeah.
ownership and distribution of the film that kept him out of it. And so I'm disappointed in
That's
that, but
right.
I'm also glad they didn't just kill him off like he would have done, probably. He just
Yeah,
was
he probably would have.
absent. Yeah, he was just absent from the film. And they carried those emotional loads better. And honestly, too, I think the angle they do revisit a little bit of a Rocky Five-ish thing with him trying to connect with his daughter, and he
Yeah.
and his wife disagreeing on the role of violence in protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Because his daughter has hearing difficulties, so she speaks, ASL and everything. And so he's teaching her how to fight, and she's like, she doesn't like that. Mom doesn't like that, and they kind of have tension there. And I think they do a better job of the parent-child relationship than they did in Rocky Five, as well. But yeah, it's a shame that we are conditioned to oftentimes judge these films based on how we feel at the end of the final fight, right? Because that is the Pavlovian response we have with all these movies is the climax is that final fight. And so for them to take such a risk in the last one that they ever did, they didn't knock that out of the park, which is a bummer. I don't know from bell to bell, no pun intended. I don't know if I like Creed 3 better than Creed 2 or Creed 2 better than Creed 3. I definitely like the first one of all the Creed movies far better than either of the two. Because I do like the story of Creed 3 better than Creed 2, but the fights in Creed 2 were more true to what we're accustomed to experiencing, and it wasn't, weird. So I don't know.
I will say I liked Creed 1 felt, how do I say this? I liked Creed 2 a little more than Creed 1 for the Rocky Drago aspect of it, but that was
Mhm.
because um I just was still kind of, it was just synonymous with Rocky. So,
Yeah.
but it was a Rocky takeover, basically, like an audience takeover. It was a Rocky takeover.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Creed film. As a standalone Creed film, quote unquote, Creed 1 would definitely be top of the list. Creed 3, it just, I've said this many, 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 many times. There's nothing worse than having a meal at a restaurant, because again, we like to do this food analogy, having a meal at a restaurant, um, and that last course is off. Like instead of
Mhm.
sugar, they use salt. Like it's so disappointing to sit down and again, we mentioned this in the beginning of our talk, what ticket prices were like in 76. That's not today's ticket prices. It is
No.
expensive to go to a movie.
You're looking at
You're
three
you're Come on.
maybe 7 times the amount. Depending on
Come
what kind
on.
of screen you're seeing it on, you're going anywhere from 5 to 7 times the amount of price for the
Think
ticket.
about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. For
And
something that I can
that's
watch at
without food.
home, and it's a big ask for me to come into the theater, spend my hard-earned money, especially if I'm taking like a date, if I'm taking family, to come out of a film at the end and just go, what was that?
Yeah.
Why did they come up with this weird? It felt like, you know what it felt like? I watched for the first time like a month or so ago, Scott Pilgrim Saves the World. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Uh-huh.
Never saw it before. It just came on. It just caught my attention. I loved it. I thought it
Yeah.
was so highly
The whole
entertaining.
movie was
The
that way.
whole movie.
Yeah.
That's what
Just
I
like a
felt I
video
was
game.
watching with that end scene. And it
Yeah.
didn't make sense in the film. And it also didn't make sense because that's not how any of the previous fight films and any of the previous films were
Not
done.
even Creed ones. Yeah, I know, exactly. And it's not the time to make that creative licensing decision.
At
I agree.
all.
I agree with you. It's like going to a really fancy steakhouse. Everything's banging. It's excellent. And they come out to dessert and they start doing a dance and playing instruments and they light it on fire and sprinkle the salt or sugar, whatever on it. And then you're like, oh, my wife's banana pudding is better than this. It's
It's
fine.
disappointing.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
It's like when you're eating it, it's fine. And then they show you the check and you're like, I'm sorry. What? Do the Jerry Seinfeld where you look
not the
at
way
it
it
and you
should
lean
end.
back and look around. Yeah.
And,
So
and I don't know if they're going to do a fourth one.
I don't think they should. I mean, it seems like they really tried to put the period on the end of that sentence for Creed at the end of that film. Not in a Stallone way. He doesn't die or anything, but like nobody gets cancer. But nevertheless, it seems like they're pretty content because even the movie itself, before the plot starts to progress, Creed is already trying to retire, and like move along, and he's like getting into promoting and stuff like that, and things. And then his boy comes out and everything, and so it's just one of those things. But yeah, it's just it's disappointing that was like the last entry, but I feel like that's probably what it should be. And so I don't know, man. Do you want to try to take a stab as we try to wrap up and make sense of all this? How you would rank? That's what it's 9 movies, but
Okay, sure.
what you
Yeah,
would do?
I can do that. I can do that. Number one on the list, Rocky 1.
Okay,
Without a doubt.
we agree.
Yeah. Number 2, Rocky 2 for me.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Well, wait. Are we ranking Rocky and Creed as just one lump sum?
I was thinking that, but I mean,
Okay.
if you
Okay,
wanna
that's fine.
go by the beat of your own drum, it's okay. We can do that. So all right, ladies and gentlemen, hold your applause.
Sound effects.
I think for all the sound effects, I just really want it to be the Undertaker's song, but oh well.
But your mic kind of went out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you
Oh,
hear me
that's
now?
better. Okay, you're
right,
better. You're better. I love that. Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Rocky Balboa, Creed 2, Creed 1, Creed 3, and Rocky 5.
Okay, so you've got Rocky, then 2, then 3,
Then 4,
you got then 4, then what
then
came
Rocky
after 4?
Balboa,
Then Balboa, then Creed
Creed 2,
2. Okay,
then Creed
then
1.
Creed, then 3, then 5.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see here. Let's see.
Yep. And I'm sticking to it.
All right. I'm going to differ a little bit here. Let's see. Um, all right. Sorry, everybody. I'm just putting mine down to compare. All right. Well, you and I share our top spot. And before I release mine, since he's participating, we're going to highlight George, who's given us his rankings. He's going Rocky 1, 2, and 3 in order, Creed 1 and 2, then Rocky 4, then Creed 3, then Rocky 5, then Rocky Balboa at the bottom of the list for George. You're not going to get a free meal at Adrian's with that
No,
list.
you are not.
All right, here's my list.
Good list.
Rocky 1, top of the list. I'm gonna shake it up a minute. I'm saying Creed 1 is number 2. I'm gonna go Rocky 3 as number 3, and then Rocky 2 as number 4. I loved Rocky 2, but it's just so much of the same as the first one. Like we said earlier, if it had been all one giant movie together, it would have been amazing. And it's still good. We're still in the high quality sections. All right. After Rocky 2, in fourth place, I got Rocky 4.
Okay.
And then now I've got Creed 2, and then Creed 3, and then I've got Balboa, and I've got Rocky 5 at the bottom.
I mean, that's fair. We agree with the bottom spot. For
yeah. Fake Don Kings, our top and our bottom. You know what? We both got the same bread. We just, mix up our sandwich a little bit, and that's fine.
Okay.
That way we know which sandwich is yours and which sandwich is mine. It's all good.
That's okay.
So we're a big fan of a true underdog earning his place at the table, and we are not fans of fake Don Kings and my ring's outside. No, Rocky, your ring is in between the ropes.
God, so bad.
Yeah, rough stuff. But thank you for spending a Wednesday night.
This was fun.
Talking a lot of fun Rocky films. You guys could have been watching AEW tonight. Just kidding. Nobody watches AEW. And so I can't get away with not taking a shot at them. That's so mean. Nevertheless, this has been a blast. We will be back next month. Obviously, we'll be hopping here and there on each other's channels, talking wrestling as we always do. There's plenty of exciting shows coming up. You've got SmackDown on Friday at A&B Convos. For the next 2 weeks on NXT, we've got the Gold Rush. So it's going to be a buffet of title matches. Will be a lot of fun to talk that as well. Survivor Series is only a couple of weeks away. We'll have plenty to talk about coming up there. And next month, when we revisit our movie discussion, me and A, we're going to be talking Star Wars. We're going to go long ago in a galaxy far away and discuss the episodic Star Wars films from if you start with A New Hope or start with Phantom Menace, either way, there's 9 episodes we're going to be discussing. And I'm very interested to see how that goes, because it's always a fun conversation, because Star Wars has done a lot of good and a lot of bad. So we'll see where we go. That'll be a lot of fun. Anything, I turn the floor over to you before we turn it off tonight. What do you got to share?
Well, I want to thank you very, very much for allowing me to once again be on the show to discuss this. This is something that you wouldn't think there would be a lot to dig into, but in fact, there really was. The Rocky films are overall so much fun, and been watching them for such a long time. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of dig into this a little bit. And like you said, we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable, and that's what it's all about. And like you said, we're going to be back for Friday Night SmackDown, and we might just have somebody in studio that day. Hey. So let's see how that goes. So we'll see how that goes. The channel mascots are looking at me to go ahead and get her done. So we're going to go ahead and get her done. I've got a couple of shorts to edit, so look out for those as well from Monday Night Raw. That is
All
it.
right, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, you can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Or, as others have said, if I can change and you can change, everybody can change. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for a Rocky discussion. We'll be back anytime, sometime soon. Stay liking this channel, smash that like button, give it brain damage, and we will be back here on Tuesday for NXT. Join A&B and Convos Friday night for SmackDown. We will see you guys again very, very soon.